In this tutorial, I'm going to be talking about core exercise for beginners. Now, we know that there are planks, there are side planks, and we know that they're sort of helping our body create tension so we can hold our torso in position. But what we're going to talk about in this one is a type of core exercise that gets missed by most people. And it's something that I introduce to as many people as I can that I'm working with. And it introduces momentum and how to move weights or your body more effectively. We're going to go through 6 principles to start with. So sort of just basic ideas of how to do the exercises and some of the things to notice whilst you're doing it. And then we're going to apply it into 2 exercises. So it gives you a place to start and a place to progress onto. Principles 1, 2 and 3 are based on a bit more on your anatomy. So principle number 1 is the spine and the torso and the muscles of the torso and the muscles around the spine are there to prevent movement. And then number 2 is the muscles of the limbs or the joints of the limbs are there to produce movement. And then the third one is the idea of pulsing, which I'll go through and put a little bit of meat on the bones as we go through. So when it comes to the spine, what it's there to do, it's there to keep us upright, it's there to be in its neutral position. One thing I should say now, it can move, it is allowed to move, but there is a time and a place for it to move. Generally when we're exercising, certainly using sort of heavy weights, it wants to be in the neutral posture. As we start using momentum, we can start then moving the spine a little bit more effectively. But the lumbar spine will be in its neutral position as a general rule all the way through. So these movements or these exercises are designed with that in mind. So it complements that fundamental, let's just say, biomechanical principle. Then when we come onto the limbs, they are there to produce movement. So the muscles of the limbs, so you've got the big glute max, the quads, they're big, strong, powerful muscles that are there to produce movement. The muscles of the torso, they don't necessarily work as well on their own as they do as a group. So if you can get rectus abdominis with the obliques, with the quadratus lumborum, with the lats, with the traps, that becomes what is known as the whole that is greater than the sum of all parts. So we want to try and keep those muscles working together, holding the spine in position, whilst we can then get the hips and the shoulders working to produce any movement. So I'm rotating at my hips, I'm moving from the arm, I'm rotating from the arm. So that's the type of idea that we want to bring into these exercises. Number 3, as I mentioned, is the idea of pulsing. Now, pulsing is just about sort of parts of the movement which are there to create the movement, create the power for the movement, and then it relaxes and then it contracts again. So what we're going to do is we're going to use those 2 exercises with these principles in mind. And what I'm going to talk about next, in the next 3, is just a little bit more about completing the exercise and some things you can be thinking about whilst you're doing the exercise. Principles number 4, 5 and 6 are a little bit more about the exercise itself. So the first one is we don't want to be pulled around by the movement or the exercise, and we'll obviously sort of make sense of this a little bit more, and I'll talk about that as we go through. So we've got don't be pulled around by the weight. We've got to try and hold our body in position, and this is what's making the exercise work, is the fact that we're not being pulled around. With normal core exercises like sit-ups and crunches, which I don't recommend anyway, you're trying to create the movement and the body's trying to create the movement. Whereas with this, we're trying to hold a position and we're trying to get the weight to pull us around and we're holding strong. So that's the difference within these exercises. Number 5 is that we need to keep the movement smooth, because number 5 has a knock-on effect to number 6, which is about being efficient, which is using multiple tissues. It makes the movement efficient so we can lift more by using less energy. So we've got don't be pulled around by the weight, keep the movement smooth, and then that will keep you efficient and using multiple tissues so you can lift more for less effort. Now we're going to put those 6 components or 6 principles or whatever you want to call them, we're going to put them into practice. We're going to be using a kettlebell. Now there are other bits of exercise equipment that you can use, but kettlebells are really effective for doing it. So if you have access to them, then this is going to be to your advantage. Now what we're going to do, we're going to start down on the knees. So we're going to be in this position. We're going to have a wider base with the knees, and then we're going to bring the heels together. That's just going to give us a nice solid base, and it's going to help the glutes contract. What we're then going to do is we're just going to take this weight and we're just going to pass it around our body. So we're not thinking about sort of how heavy the weight is or how hard we're working at the moment. We're just trying to get a good solid movement and smooth movement with it, as I mentioned. So we're going to be basically fulfilling those 6 components. We're going to be holding our spine in its neutral position. We're going to be using the shoulders to do the movement. There's going to be a pulsing nature to it. It's going to be, as I've mentioned, smooth movement. We're not going to get pulled around from it, and it's going to be nice and efficient. So all we do is we just lift, we come into position, and we pass it around. So all I'm trying to do is avoid this happening. So I'm being pulled around by the weight. The weight's dictating what my body's doing, and I'm just being pulled around by it. So what I want to be doing is keeping the weight close, so as it comes around the front and around the back, and I'm not being pulled around by it. My shoulders are staying relatively level. The movement's nice and smooth, so I'm not sort of clunking it round like so. It's nice and smooth, which is keeping it nice and efficient. And when it comes to pulsing, every time I let go and catch, there's a little pulse of my torso and of my limbs to be able to hold the weight, catch the weight. And then as it goes around my leg, around the back and around the front, it's then, in some respects, it's relaxing. It's not completely relaxing, but say it's, when I change over, it's 100% tension. As it comes round, it'll drop to say 70 or 80. And then it will carry on round, and then we just keep it smooth, and then we can just push it back the other way, and it can hold in that position there. So that is where we would start with it. Just getting used to passing it around the body, getting used to it being smooth, getting used to changing hands, because that can be a little bit of a, not a challenge for people, but it can be a little bit of a step to overcome. So it's very much passing it around the body. You could go 6 to 8 to 10 times one way and then the other way. And then you can alternate ways and you can do all sorts with it. What we would then do to progress that on is we would come up onto the feet and we would add what's called a catch to it. Now again, this is doing exactly the same. So we have a nice solid base with the feet. Again, we need to lift it safely from the floor into this position. And then all we do is we pass it around like so. So again, we're not being pulled around like so. We're staying solid. And then all we do is we just come up. So I'm just creating a little bit of momentum, a little flick of the hip. That's just creating a little bit of momentum. So that pulsing nature to it of contract, relax, contract. So when I bring it round and I flick the hip, there's a contraction. As the weight comes up, travels up, it relaxes. As I catch it, I then contract again. So that's that pulsing nature. And then I just pass it around. Again, you can see I'm using the knees to sort of hold and cushion the position. So again, I don't get pulled around by it, just holding there. And then once I've finished, I can just lower it safely back towards the floor. So those are 2 very simple exercises to get you started. Because again, with the planks, as good as the planks, the side planks, bridges, bird dogs are, and I do promote those, as good as they are, they will only take you so far. This now starts to bring in a little bit more of everyday life. So if you have an active lifestyle, this is much more aligned with a normal lifestyle because you've got that going on. If you're lifting, carrying, moving things around, you're going to need to use some momentum to be able to move them or lift them or carry them wherever you need to carry them or put them wherever you need to put them. So you just start to get a few more skills to be able to transfer over. If it's simply just fitness for fitness sake, then again, it's going to be much better for you because you're going to be doing what the body is designed to do. It's designed to work in that way, in so much as Torso is there to prevent movement, limbs are there to produce it, and then we've got that pulsing nature, so we can lift more for less effort. And then if it's for sport and performance, well, sports and performance are exactly that. The limbs need to generate all the power. If you're a sprinter, it's all in the hips. If you're a boxer, it's all in the hips. If you're a golfer, it's all in the hips. So this type of exercise is going to be much more effective for you than lifting a big heavy bar with a load of weight on it. You'll get nice and strong, but you won't get the fluid smoothness and whip to the movement or the pattern that you're trying to reproduce or train for or enhance. So hopefully that's been of help to you. Hopefully it gives you a few ideas and maybe something to take away with you, so you can either do it at home, do it at the gym, and it gives you a new piece of equipment to start getting used to using, which is much more aligned to the way your body is designed to work. So many thanks for watching. My name is Chris from Kettlebell Training. I'll speak to you in the next tutorial.